Welcome back to movementprofessional.com. So I'm 600 reps into the 10,000 rep kettlebell swing challenge, where we are trying to get in 10,000 reps of kettlebell swings in about 30 days, a month, somewhere along those lines. It's a lot of volume. I love the kettlebell swing. I think it's a fantastic exercise. But regardless, it's a lot of doing the same thing. So we want to talk about how to kind of complete this journey safely. All right, so I've done some videos on how to do the swing properly. Done some videos on proper pelvic position. I want to kind of put it all together here, just specific for this challenge, and make sure that we're all doing it as safely as possible. All right, so just going over the breakdown of the kettlebell swing. All right, in the positions and transitions of it, the position that we need to be able to get into is a good hip hinge position here. All right, so we want to make sure that first the feet are right. All right, and I would recommend doing most of your swings barefoot if you can, if you're on the proper, in the proper situation, the proper environment, because you want to feel your feet and feel what they're doing. It's also a good opportunity, since there's such a high volume of swings, to actually build up some strength in your feet just by how you're placing them on the ground. So I want you to get the feet so you're kind of screwing them into the ground, which will lift the arch, and that's basically where you're going to stay the whole time for your swing. So your kneecaps are already be facing out, and then you reach through into this hip hinge position. So from the side, it's just a straight line from the ear down to the hip, and my wrists are touching the upper part of my thigh. And my shoulders, I'm going to be feeling like I'm just trying to screw the shoulders back into the socket, which I can start from up top and just bring it down through here. And then it's just basically I'm standing up, aggressively just pressing the outside of the feet and the heel down through the ground as I stand up. And then the bell just kind of goes where it goes. So I'm not even holding the bell right now. The arms are just going for the ride like a pendulum. All right, the eyes and the gaze will follow the bell or follow the line of the spine. So if I'm standing up, my eyes are going to be forward, looking at the horizon. When I come down, they're just going to be at the angle which would be appropriate for my head to be in line with the tailbone. And I just want to do that each time. I want to make this a flow. One of the biggest mistakes people make with a kettlebell swing is trying to control it too much and trying to go slowly on the way down. All right, so you're trying to basically stop a moving object against gravity when you do that, and you're going to lose that battle. All right. Plus, it's not as efficient. So the key is when I lift the bell up, I want to be aggressive on the way down. I actually want to push it down, or just go with the flow of gravity, and then the active motion is on the way up, where I generate some force. So do not try to slow this bell down. Just go with it, and then come back up. All right, and another big mistake is when we get to the top, there's this overextension. So I've talked extensively about this. It's just you got to make sure you can keep this neutral pelvis position. So the position I start in here is these hip bones and my pubic bone are flat, and they stay that way as I come here, and then they get back to the exact same position which I started with when I stand up. Not tip down and overextended. So you want to stop your momentum when you get to the top, so you finish like the letter I, by driving your feet down through the ground, tightening the bottom of the butt so the tailbone kind of pulls under, and getting some tension across the lower belly. All right, if that's difficult for people to do, then there's going to be some mobility work that needs to be done to counterbalance all that, and we'll go over that in a second. All right, so those are some of the major positions. That standing at about chest or chin level is where you're going to finish. But you're not doing anything with the arms, it's just kind of catching the swing of the bell. Alright? And you're just going with the movement. So you're just catching the bell right here. You don't have to be locked out with the arms. You can be loose and relaxed. The grip position is usually a hook grip, where you're just kind of hanging onto the fingers here. Because if I squeeze it too tight, now I'm going to be using way more of my arms than I need to. I'm going to get gas down the arms, but it can also cause shoulder dysfunction that's unnecessary. All right. So one of the benefits of the kettlebell swing, if we look at it as an exercise that you are doing for a high volume, is you can get this flow, so it can become very aerobic. Just like if you're running or rowing, you're going to do that for a a large volume of repetitions, you don't really look at it as repetitions, you just look at it as how long the distance that you're rowing or running or cycling, etc. With the swing, it can be something similar because it's such a flow that it's almost like a cardiovascular endeavor if you allow it to be so. So you're going to make sure that whatever load you're doing is appropriate for something that you can handle and make it a flow if you're doing this high of volume, or you just really got to break up your sets into chunks. So if you start doing high reps and you get up to about 30 reps or so, and all of a sudden you feel pumped out in the back, and that's where you're doing most of the work from, take a break. You need to put it down, you need to do something else. One of the ways to counterbalance all of this motion upward, which is a hip extension movement, is to do some type of movement into flexion. And one of the best counterbalances is a butterfly sit-up, if you have a good butterfly sit-up. So we can start, if you have a good butterfly sit-up from the ground, you're opening the hips, you're going overhead, so you're stretching out the spine, and you're unloading your spine. Now I'm on the ground, so I'm unloading my spine, and then what I'm doing is a little bit of trunk flexion, but I'm finishing up tall towards the ceiling. I can bring the hands down and touch afterwards, but you want to finish up tall, so it's literally a sit-up, not a crunch, which keeps me in flexion the whole time. I get this opening, around and coming up into flexion. Now I'm back into this tall, open hip hinge position to finish. All right, so it actually is a good functional exercise to teach you how to go from supine with hips open to an upright seated position, and can actually work on your sitting posture. But if you have a good flow of your butterfly sit-ups, it's a nice counterbalance to do in between sets of the high volume kettlebell swing. All right. If you don't have a good butterfly sit-up, you can't use a Bosu or something elevated to allow you to finish in this upright position, because you don't want to try to just go partial range with these, or you're going to be straining the back more, because you're going to be balancing yourself always into this tightness in the front of the body. So you want to be able to use your abs to get you to this upper, tall seated position. So having an elevation here makes this a lot easier. All right, so that would be a scale down from the butterfly sit-up. All right, and that's something you can do. The other thing is taking a medicine ball, and you can do a medicine ball slam in between sets. So once you feel like you're getting a little tired going up into the swing, you do a medicine ball slam, you're up overhead, and now I'm in the same position, but I'm going in the opposite direction. All right, so you pick it up, down, down. And you don't have to do this in-between work as conditioning, but just do it as counterbalance work. All right, so you don't have to go super fast with it. You just want to make sure that you're almost stretching your spine in the other direction. So to actually give the spine a rest, or the lower back a rest from doing a lot of volume here, it's not necessarily best to rest it. It's actually better to move into the other direction. All right, so other movements can be some mountain climbers, because that goes into the other direction. Here I'm kind of getting a little bit of a curl into the spine. But again, you don't have to do it super fast or for high velocity, high intensity. It's just going to be kind of a stretch in the other direction, or just simply going into a child's pose back and forth here for a couple reps, just to counterbalance all of that hip extension work. All right. So one of the benefits of doing a lot of hip extension is that we tend to do a lot of hip flexion throughout the course of the day with static sitting. So you can look at swings as almost a counterbalance for that, but it's a little more complex than that, because we're using our mover muscles so intensely, and there's a lot of tension that you're going to be building in muscles that are really meant to work in shorter durations. So you got to make sure that you have a good flow of the swing, so that it doesn't become too much of a power movement, and it becomes more of an aerobic movement when you're doing this type of volume. All right, so that's just a little discussion on the form of the swing, how to break up the high volume of the swing with some movements that go in the other direction. And then the mobility work to try to do when you're not doing the swings, like before bed, or maybe as a warm-up or a cool-down. All right, so certain areas that we're going to want to look at so we don't get this sway in the back is getting the ball in the belly, around the diaphragm here, All right, and as a warm-up, you can make this active. Try to get the glutes firing by lifting the leg and blocking the diaphragm. It's also going to help you calm down some of the breathing. If you're feeling like you need to down-regulate a little bit and relax your breathing, you can just let the ball sink up into the gut and try to extend your exhale out as long as you can, around 10 seconds. And then when you breathe in, you push the ball out of you, that's going to engage this diaphragm. So it's a contract and relax for your diaphragm, but it's any type of belly work is also pushing you out of this overextended position. All right, so starting up there, and then we can move down into the lower quadrants here where the area of your psoas would be. You're going to get on here. Same idea. Block the back from overextending while you extend the hip. Gets the glute firing, but it also can relax any of the over-tensioning that's happening when you start losing form with the swing. All right, and again, if you put any pressure in the belly, you're likely going to relax the lower back muscles. All right, so you can get in there. If you're doing it as a warm-up, do 10 to 20 reps. If you're doing it as a cool-down or before bed, put a 2-minute timer on and just hang out here and let the ball sink in as you breathe out. All right, moving down the chain, we're going to look at the quads. Every time you come up from a swing, you're straightening your knees out, so your quads are going to fire. All right, and then also likely the outer or lateral part of the thigh here is going to get some tension here because you have to kind of open and close the hips. And so you want to explore the front of the thigh and the outside of the thigh with a roller of any sort. All right, you can strip it going from knee up into hip or from hip up into knee. And you're just finding trigger points you're trying to explore there. You can do some active motion right on the spot. That feels limited. And then after a few minutes, go to the outside and explore. All right. So if you turn your body towards the mat, turn your belly button down towards the mat, you're going to bias the front of the thigh. And if you turn your belly button up to the ceiling, you're going to bias the back of the thigh. So explore, because everybody's going to have different restrictions, and left and right is going to have different restrictions. So there's plenty more that you can do, but that's just a quick, or not so quick, little description of how you can make this a bit safer for yourself for these 30 days. See you next time.